him to be one of the Heichel Mishpacha. Rabbi Russel has helped countless people across the globe. Everything that Rabbi Russel does is with the Das Torah of the Gedolei Rosh Yeshiva, whether it's overt or covert, and it's a big schus for us to hear on the complicated topic of the mystery of Shalom Bayis through a Torah lens. We very much look forward to hearing from Rabbi Russel.
Shkoyach to the Rav, B'shus to the Rav. It's always a pleasure to come back here and share some thoughts with the Olam. So we're going to try and capture the sugya. This is a course. It's a course. It's not a sugya. You understand? So we'll try and capture the essence of it, if we can tonight, so that people can go home with some chizuk and focus. So there was once a young man. He was a boy. He grew up, a teenager, and became a young man. He wasn't the smartest, but he looked around the world, and every day on the way to school, so he saw what he termed the successful people in his mind, busy, hurrying to work, polished shoes, nice briefcases, very nice clothes, their hair was done nice, and he saw them go down to the subway, and in his mind's eye, he always imagined, when I finish my schooling, I'm going to become one of the successful people. I'm joining them. Lo and behold, the day came, finished school, he borrowed a briefcase from his brother, polished his shoes, they found the suit, combed his hair, and he joined the throngs going to work down into the subway. It was his first time down there. He goes down, he's with everyone else, hurrying to work, and he sees they're going to a kiosk, so he goes to the kiosk, and he says, "Give me a ticket." And they said, "Where to?" He said, "I don't know, with them, wherever they're going. I want to be with the successful people." And of course they made fun of him and eventually pushed him out the way. Because, Rabbi say, if you don't know where you're going, well, how are you going to get there? If you don't have a destination in mind, if you don't have a picture, most of us get married. I ask people, "Why'd you get married?" So the boys say, "I don't know, it was like, I got fed up with my roommates, The girls, I don't want to have a baby, It's like rarely does anyone get married. It's a pella awesome when you think about it, with a picture. Especially when you get married, within 6 months, the bucket of water comes on your head, and you get the picture pretty good of what it's all about. You start getting the truth. But when you enter in, most of us don't have a picture. And this, to me, what I see is without a vision, without a clear picture of where you're going, honestly, how are you going to get there? And we need to have a picture of what is our marriage about. It's not just we get married, have babies, and do it with Kedusha. That's true, but it's much deeper than that. In fact, if you look in the Western world, I think it's up to 60% now are divorced within 10 years. 60% in the Western world are divorced because they have no picture. There's no vision. There's no understanding. Where am I heading with this marriage? Marriage is not a vehicle to them. It's just part of, the journey in life. You get married, you get divorced, you get married, you get divorced, whatever. I was once in a dentist office, fascinating story, and I saw this Psychology Today was sitting there, the magazine. I couldn't resist it. It's my zach, But I really couldn't resist it because on the front cover, steht there, 10 ways to improve your marriage. So I figured, okay, let's see the Chachma B'Goyim, let's see what they have to say. Number 6 on the list was consider spending more time away from your spouse. This is how you're going to have a good marriage. You need time alone. And there was a whole paragraph explaining the godless of not spending so much time together. Go away on vacation on your own. A goyish cook. Completely missing the point about what is marriage. What is our life about? What's the whole vehicle for? Mamish missed it. I was on a panel once at a Shabbaton, and I've been talking the whole Shabbos about what I refer to as Torah psychology. And someone very bright asked me, around Shalashud, after Shalashud, there was a panel, they asked me, could I please define the difference between Torah psychology and secular psychology? I keep saying Torah psychology. So what's the difference? So I said like this, that secular psychology seeks to help a person be the most happy, fulfilled person you can, while causing the least harm to everyone around you. This is the goal of secular psychology. Doesn't sound so terrible. The goal of Torah psychology is to work out how to become the ultimate native to everyone around you while preserving the ability to be happy and fulfilled. It's a very different cook. The focus is outward, not inward. How do I become a native to everyone, but don't be a nar, while preserving the ability to be happy and fulfilled? It's the opposite of secular psychology. And what we're going to look at is understand marriage within this frame, within this lens, of how do I become the ultimate native? What is it? We have to understand the yesodus of marriage while preserving the ability to be happy and fulfilled and not be a meshugana. So the Gemara in Saita, everyone knows the Gemara in Saita, Daf Bayis. The Gemara in Saita, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, the Gemara says, Arbaim yom kodim mesiras havlad, yoytze basko, v'ameres bas ploni leploni. Let me translate. 40 days, I'm going to, as a shittas rishonim, but I'm going to go with conception for this. 40 days before a child is conceived, Bas kol yoytze, it goes out to Bas kol Shemayim, and says, Bas Ploni, the daughter of someone, Ploni, will marry Ploni. It's a little complex to understand what's what. Tosfos right away tells us that the Vlad, Arbaim Yom Kodim Yetziras HaVlad, 40 days before conception of this child, who? Which one? Who is it? The boy, the girl? Tosfos says, B'stom, it's the boy. Because the boy is usually older than the girl. So we'll name on it's the boy. Now follow the cheshbon. I'm going to make a hechetimsa here that could be fit in this Gemara, and it's hafla b'fela. Could. I'm not saying this is the only thing the Gemara means. I'm saying it's a hechetimsa. It's one of the understandings of this Gemara. Follow the cheshbon. I know it's late at night, but we'll try and see if you can stay with me. 40 days before the conception of Pliny, Abraham Yod Kodisios of Vlad, the Vlad, 40 days before his conception, the Bas Kol comes out and says, Bas Pliny, the daughter of Pliny, let's give him a name, Reuven. Let's call this Pliny Reuven. 40 days before the Asira of whoever that is, in fact, let's call him Shimon. The Basko goes out and says, Bas Ploni, the daughter of Reuven, Le Ploni, will marry Shimon. Got the cheshbon? Right? So 40 days before he's even conceived, in Shemayim, he's getting married. Let's follow the cheshbon. There's stira to all the worry about shidduchim in the world. This Gemara shatters the whole thing. Because let's have a cheshbon here. Again, it's a hechetimsa, it's a possibility. 40 days, let's say, before Pliny, who did we say was Shimon, right, is conceived, 40 days before. Where are his parents? The parents who are going to conceive in 40 days from now. Again, it's one hechetimsa. So, one way of looking at this is that this is the first child to be born to a young couple who are not married yet. In fact, he's still in Brisk, he didn't come back yet. She came back and is running around with gowns and shaitels and raised printing on the invitations and who knows what she's busy with. They've only met 3 times, they were Hasidish, they didn't even meet. They were like at a basho, so they barely even know. She has to look at a picture to remind herself who he is. Meanwhile, in Shemayim, she with her gowns and her shaitels, and he's still in Brisk or wherever he is, Rachmistrif, he's busy over there. They're married, they have a child who has a shidduch. You following the cheshbon? Yeah. Okay, let's look at the Mechutanim. Who are the Mechutanim? Let's assume this boy is 19 20, let's give him 20. Let's be nice. He's 20. And she's 18. Okay, we'll give her 18. He's 20. He's come back from yeshiva. He's still there. She's 18. Remember in Shemayim, this is Arba'im Yom Kodim Yetzirah Sam. 40 days they will conceive on their wedding night. They're going to conceive. Meanwhile, in Shemayim, this child, who they had not conceived for 40 days, has a shidduch. Who's the shidduch? Where are her parents? So let's say she's 3 years younger. Okay, so he's 20. So the mechutin is 17. The mechutenister, what did we say? She's 19. So the mechutenister is 16. Right? 19 is, in fact, if they would even know each other, they'll both get thrown out of yeshiva and they'll never get a shidduch. Meanwhile, in Shemayim, they're the mechutanim, they're the bas ploni. You understand? They're the mechutanim. They're 16, they're 19 and 16. Never even thought about marriage, nothing. She's in high school. She's running the play. She's having a good time. Meanwhile, go tell her that in Shemayim you have a child who has a shidduch. Celestially, your child is already meshudach with this Arba'im Yom whose parents aren't married yet. If I said it wrong, did I say it right?
You said it.
What's going on here? This is a Heichatimsa that has to fit into this Gemara. You understand? So it comes out in Shemayim. Why? Because the Eibishter knows who's Mezavik Zivugim, understands already past, present, future, what works, what's the shidduch, how's it going to work with all its milas, the chitzrainas. It's a shidduch because it has a tachlis, because there's a purpose. And the Eibishter orchestrates that. We're megashim it in this world. We have to play through as if we're choosing and as if we're dating and das and yes. But in Shemayim is doch a shidduch already. Hafla v'fela. Because there's a tachlis to this marriage. If we, just this alone, if we would really deepen our embrace of this truth, if we'd go home with this truth, in Shemayim, this was my zibur. What a difference. That alone brings to our lives. But let's get a bit deeper. Marriage has two purposes. There's two goals of marriage. One is dveikus Bayis, to bring us to dveikus with Hashem, which is tachlis kol Torah mitzvahs, is dov kabay, is the tachlis, the Ari HaKadosh says, of all mitzvahs, is dov kabay, to be dovek with Hashem. A marriage requires us to be dovek with each other, dovek v'ishtai. We have to learn to give up the ego, to get myself out the way, in order to be dovek, in order to connect. It teaches me dveikus. It teaches me to give up of zich, the mechitzas, which have to be given up in Shalom Bayis, in marriage. We give up kimat every mechitzah that's possible, that's imaginable, in order to be dovek with each other. And that's a metaphor and an instruction and a direction and an ezer to give up the ego, to be dovek with Borei Olam, with Hashem. The other purpose of tachlis of marriage is tikkun amidus. It's to be mitaken amidus, because as we all know, no one less mandapalik. If you're going to be married, you're going to work on your midas. There is no choice. There is no option. That's the tachlis. The Vilna Gaon in Even Shleimer, in the first parak of Even Shleimer, the Vilna Gaon, they bring down Hashem the Gaon, the Ika Chiyas Ha'odom Ba'olam Hazeh Lishtadel Lishbo Midoisov. The Ika Chiyas, the Ika reason we live in this world is to work, to be Meshaveh, to break out bad midas. And Zod the Gaon, it's a pachad noira, what the Gaon says. V'im lav, Zod the Gaon, if you're not going to do it, lama l'chaim. Why are you alive? Why are you alive? You have no life. There's no purpose. Marriage grabs that. Marriage grabs it. It grabs both the opportunity for dveikus, which means giving up mechitzas, which is the ego. Because the ego is always self-interest. It's always about me. My ego always provides for me. That's me. That's the secular psychology. That it's always about me first. My happiness. I shouldn't cause harm to anyone else. Oh, but it's me, me, me. And the truth is, the tachlis of Shalom Bayis breaks that. It breaks the midas and it brings me dveikus bayisbach. That's really the purpose. That's where we're going. That's what our marriage is really for. The essence of the marriage is that the Agav, the Eibishter, the Rambam describes in Deus, the Eibishter gave a tzura to bring children into the world, but they're kedusha. That we should bring kedusha. It shouldn't be hefka. Oh, but children can come to the world without marriage. We need kedusha, to do it. But technically, you don't need a marriage for that. But a marriage forces upon us the work on dveikus, on being dovek with each other, to give up the mechitzas and to work on our ego. Adam Arishan, we find, was created du partsufim. He was, the Medrash says, he was a man on one side, a lady on the other side. He was bedveikus, the tachlis of dveikus. So leave him alone. He's achieved dveikus. If that's the whole tachlis is dveikus, leave him alone. He's got it. He's got man and woman somehow working in this absolute harmony. But that wasn't, because that was achdus. It wasn't shlemus. It's achdus. It's not good to be in a oneness in achdus. Al ken yazog. You have to leave and be a dobik and work out how to connect. Achdus and shlemus are two different things. Shlemus Adam comes from different parts working together. Achdus is like if you have a tray of ice cubes and you crack them on the table, take a look closely at all the ice cubes. They're all a little different. They break out a little different. If you put them into, a pitcher, let them melt and stick them back in the freezer, you have achdus. You'll never see the difference between them ever again. They're gone. They mamish merged together. What's shlemus? Shlemus is not like that. Shlemus is like a fruit salad. It's like a fruit salad. You take some watermelon, it's very nice. And cantaloupe's good too. And honeydew is good too. But you put them all together, and then put some apple, and put some peach, and some mango, and some pineapple. Put all different things to your taste. The more you put in, they bring out sweet and sour, tangy, and sweet. They bring out the juxtaposition of opposites, bring out the best. By having a tangy in your mouth and a sweet in your mouth at the same time, you magish the sweetness and the tanginess more than if you have one or the other. And a really good fruit salad can handle a few nuts too. Because shlemus is different parts working together. It's not achdus. Achdus, that's, Beyoma hu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. Mashiach will come and show us how to do achdus. They always say we've got to achdus in Klal Yisrael. It's wrong. It's not true. We have to have shlemus in Klal Yisrael. We have to have different camps working together. Well, that's what marriage is. Shlemus ha'adam comes by us taking the keiches that are menugadim. That's what it means. That's pshat in Eza Kenegdai. Rashi learns, the famous Rashi, he brings the Gemara, Zocha Eza lo Zocha Keneg. Which is a bit cringy, because it sounds it's a man's world. He's Zeicha, she's an Eza. He's not Zeicha, she's Kenegdai. But the Maral takes it a little deeper. The Maral in the Go'aria says that she's an Eza by being Kenegdai. That's how she's an Eza. She helps. A woman is that softer, emotional, gentler, sensitive neshama. It's different. And she helps him by bringing that gentle sensitivity and softness and forcing him to work on himself. That's an Eza by being Kenegdai. Zocher, that's how he learns the Gemara, different than Maral. Zocher, she's an Eza Kenegdai. Lo Zocher, she's Kenegdai Lolochem. She goes to war on him. It's a battle. But that's in our hands, because the avodah is both for men and women. It's mamish, it's not like just, women have to work on men. I know women think that. It's true. But it's really not. Because women have a harder job. That's obvious, they all know that. Women have a much harder job, but the real harder job for women is how do you become an Ezer with kindness, softness, gentleness, caring, love, attunement, without getting mad and frustrated when he's not so, gentle and kind, without getting mad with him. That's a tremendous avodah for an Isha to stay gentle and loving and soft while she reacts opposite to him, while her connectokite comes out, and she is jarring for an Isha, but she works out how to do that in a way that's loving. It's not connecto lelochin, like the Maral says, but she's an Ezer connect. She helps by being connected. So the tachlis in marriage is really dveikus Bayis and midas development. That's what marriage offers us. It's a lifelong job. It never ends. Each stage of life, you never get over it. When you get to my age, you're married 46 years, it doesn't end, it continues. It just transcends into another level of avodah. There's the avodah at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. There's always avodah. It never ends. Never. It's always keeping you on your toes, working. That's the vehicle of marriage. That's where it has to take us. We have to understand that in order to achieve the tachlis of marriage, to be able to live our lives properly and fully. That's the opportunity that marriage offers us. It says, the Medrash says the mizbeach is yored the most by a get. Why? Forget Adra. We find halachas, right? Many halachas were niskam. They should not be katata, fighting. Right? Let's just go to do. We shouldn't get into shul. You wearing tefillin, not wearing tefillin, have a big fight. There shouldn't be katata. So here, a couple Nebuch were fighting, and they got divorced. There's less fighting in the world. Why is the mizbeach yored the most? Should be happy. Dancing a rakita, less fighting. The answer is because of lost opportunity, not to blame. It's not chas v'shalom to criticize or blame anyone. Forget. It's simply, for whatever celestial reasons happened, it's a lost opportunity because Arbaim Yom Goyim Mesiras Avlad. This was it. This was the toughness of this relationship was meant to bring me to my shleimus adam, my tikkun amidus. In fact, I wasn't going to say this, but I just tell you agav. It's a very interesting concept. For many, many years, I went to Gedol Yisrael with the shaila. People came to me, the Shalom Bayis, for years and years, and they would say, so when do you get divorced? They would ask, when? Like, I'll be Torah, like when? And no one likes answering this question. It's your business, not mine. No one wants that. I went to many Gedol Yisrael and I asked them, and no one wanted to give a clear, definitive answer. Here's when. So instead, I came up with an idea, and I went and said, "This is my idea. What do you think? Does this work?" And everyone agreed, except for one, by the way. One of the Gedol Yisrael got very upset about it. No, he got very mad. But everybody else was masking. I said like this: if tachlis of Shalom Bayis is shleimus adam, is to perfect you, to work on your midas, then as long as you have room left to work on your midas, why would you leave? It's doing its job. But Lu Yitzuya, the pain, struggle, and difficulty of that Shalom Bayis was so great that your therapist, your best friend, and your Rav all tell you you're becoming a worse person. Well, then why stay? Why stay? It's not doing its job. And all Gedol Yisrael, you should know, except for one, we'll ask him, it's a gewaldige insight. Because the tachlis is shleimus adam. So if your best friend, your Rav, and your therapist, they all ask him, the kvedus of this is so intense, you cannot become a better person in this vehicle for whatever reason, well then why stay? Because you missed the whole point. There's no point to it. When I was in Lakewood, many, many years ago, it was perhaps one of the first times I spoke on Shalom Bayis in Lakewood. I had a title. So I went to Mori Rabbi Tzitzal Matisyahu, sadly V'bracha, and I told him the title because they didn't like my title. I asked them if I could use this title. The title was that Hashem made men and women in a way that you cannot get along naturally. That was the title. And they didn't like the title. I said, I'll ask the Mashgiach. So I went to his house, sat next to him, and I said, Mashgiach, this is the title. Hashem made men and women in a way you cannot get along naturally. He said, big kid Sonny, what do you mean, nobody? And I said to Mashgiach, nobody. And he paused, and he said, it's a bit extreme, isn't it? And I looked him in the eye and said, Mashgiach, nobody. Nobody. All of us. And then he grinned. I was sitting right next to him. He tapped me on the knee. He said, you could use the title. You could use the title. And I did use the title. It was the first time, I used to have an answer machine with voicemail. It was the first time that it was full. Every time I took the messages off after the destruction, it was full. People felt so validated. It was like that line, the title, just hit home. Everyone there was packed. They all felt it was a base figure. It was like a packed crowd. They were so validated that someone just said it the way it is. We cannot get along. Actually, later on, I found out that the Maral in the Goaria says it. He actually says it. I found it later. That the Goaria says that it's al-TV, supernatural. It is not natural for a man and woman to get along. That we have to, and that's part of Hashem's chesed. Olam chesed yibane. He makes a world of to do chesed. This is the chesed that He forces us to work on ourselves by giving us this harmony between men and women. You cannot get along naturally. Impossible. So let me go through 4 reasons why we cannot get along naturally. So first of all, I have a mature crowd, so I'm going to say it the way it is. I was given Rishus. I first asked this to Rabbi Epstein if I could do this. He said yes. Ein Doshim Rabin, and he explained what that meant. The reality and fact is that men and women, Kiyadua, have different intimacy needs. Their bodies are made differently. They have desires that are different. And they don't shtim. They don't work together. A man has more, especially when he's younger, more drive and desire for intimacy. And Isha has less. She enjoys it, of course, but she has less. But there's a lack of harmony, a natural lack of harmony that results in young men frequently going to bed frustrated, and young women frequently with a fake headache. Just my head hurts tonight. My head hurts. What's pshat with that? What was Abishta thinking? Like, make it shtim, Like, give them the same needs. They'll, have many reasons why that wouldn't work. And that the balance is gavaldi, that it provides enough drive to create amin and, but with breaks, natural breaks. But there you are. There's a lack of harmony. So what was David thinking? That alone, just that struggle, without anything else, just that constant challenge in a marriage of attunement to each other, of an Isha attuning to her husband's more present drives and desires, and a man attuning to the natural difference in an Isha of a less drive in the same way, of a less of a need in the same way, of different needs, but not just the physical in the same way. That attunement, when it's embraced, when it's captured and you embrace it fully, becomes one of the wonderful tools that drives us to this harmony, this dveikus, this tikkun amidas, to everything that we've talked about till now. It actually drives you there. Because to have a balanced Shalom Bayis, you have to work that out with love, with humor, the sensitivity, but it demands tremendous attunement, tremendous, of what does Yanim feel? What does Yanim need? it requires hisgabrus, overcoming my natural needs and desires to meet someone else's. And I have to work out how to do it in a way that I maintain my dignity and I may remain happy, I remain fulfilled. It's a constant struggle, it's a constant lifelong tension that helps lead us towards this dveikus and this tikkun amidus, gavaldik. When you look at it the other way around, it's like such a wonderful vehicle. It's almost like if you were planning how to force men and women to work on themselves, you'd do this. You'd create this lack of harmony. That's the physical, that's number one. Then we have number two. Number two is the reality that ish v'isha, we process life differently. As men are from Mars, women from Venus famously has put out there, and a Kedai read to understand it and absorb it, is that men are primarily outcome oriented. Isha is primarily process oriented. Women live in the moment of life. To men, the outcome is what matters. The rest is almost like, let's get on with it. You know, like one of the greatest painful experiences for men is something all women love. It's called window shopping. Well, what is window shopping? It's like that's for men, that's like organized, destructive tsar. I'm going out not to buy anything. So why are we going? We're going to see what they're wearing. Who is wearing? What do they even mean? See, to a woman, it took me years for the penny to drop. This idea of see what they're wearing is actually meaningful. It's like, you see what they're wearing. You know, it's like, to men, it's mamish painful. It's like, I'd rather have root canal without Novocaine. Women live in the process, and then the best one is when she spends 2 days before a chasna or a simcha, going, buying, bringing, returning. She brings 10 things back, she tries one, she takes them all back, and then she goes to another 3 stores, and it's bringing and buying and going, and Amazon and flying and returning, and it's all this stuff, and she buys nothing. 2 days later, after 2 miserable days, he actually notices, and he says, so how's it going, the shopping? And she actually starts telling him. That's a disaster. She tells him every store and every Amazon purchase and which one didn't work and why it didn't match and didn't fit. It's the wrong blue and the shade and the shoes and the scarf and the hairpiece and the dust and the yes. And he's dying listening to this, hoping beyond hope she actually bought something. And then she gets to the end and it turns out she got nothing. And to her that was a meaningful conversation. To him, he's looking at his watch. It's Myra, isn't it Myra? Like, let me get out of here. This is so much tsar. I gotta listen to her basically wasting 2 days, doing nothing, achieving nothing, and buying nothing. And I gotta now listen for 30 minutes over supper to all that drama that got nowhere. Now to women, that's a very nice conversation they would have with each other. And they could tell each other and they would have a geschmack. Am I right or wrong? They would enjoy, they're laughing, you see. They enjoy telling over how they didn't do anything. And it's very meaningful. It's very strange. I'm sorry, from a man's point of view. Thank God my wife's not here. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Like I once noticed how my wife can hang up the phone to a good friend who she realized she's got to deal with something, and it could take 5 minutes to say, I'll speak to you later, bye. And that takes 5 minutes. No, I've got to go now. I will, I'll get back to you. Yeah, I will, right? I'll talk to you. Yeah. In a few minutes, probably, yeah. This can go for 5 minutes. It's like, Bayis, bye, speak to you later. Women live in, I tell you this, a very interesting story. There was a young couple, they got married. and Yaakov and Koil, living in Eretz Yisrael, and they used to come home for every Pesach. They would come home, and then more of their siblings got married until one day they got the phone call from the parents. Maybe you can make Pesach yourself this year because we got to bring so many other couples. Their turn to come home. Maybe you should make. And they said, great, no problem. We'll give you a little money to help you. So terrific. They actually wanted to. They had a few kids. So they invited, for the first Seder, boys from Osameach, and the second Seder from Neveh. There are girls there. They're making Labor Day. It's going to be Givaldic. Okay. So they have a tiny little apartment. And it's their first Pesach. So they got 3 kids. They got the baby and the toddler and the other kids, right? And meanwhile, they're putting all the stuff away for Pesach. It's right for Pesach. The kitchen is flying. It's flying. So for Pesach, and she's trying to get it all organized. And she notices, as she's trying to wash up, right before Pesach, an hour or two, there's water coming out from the cabinet under the sink. There's water coming out. So she opens up, and she sees they've stuffed all the chametz kalim in there, and dislodged the U-tube underneath, where the water goes out. So she calls her husband and says, can you take care of it? I got to wash up. What am I going to do? He says, fine. Pulls out all the chametz. This guy's having a nervous breakdown because he's got to pull out all his chametz kalim, like just an hour or two before Yom Tov comes in. So he pulls it out, puts it on a towel, and then he goes backwards underneath, killing his back, trying to dry it. And of course he duct tapes, she's telling him how to do it, by the way. Just put duct tape around it. Around what? He says, around the tube, put duct tape around. And she says, don't forget to dry it off properly first. Of course, he thought he dried it off. He puts duct tape around there. Meanwhile, he notices one of the toddlers is running away with all the chametz kalim. And so he jumps up and whacks his head on the inside of the cabinet. And he's like bleeding from his head now. And the toddler, he's screaming for this toddler who's running off with the chametz kalim. And he tells his wife, it's not working. She said, did you dry it? Did you dry it? Use a hairdryer, dry it first. Takes off all the duct tape again, the whole thing. And of course, she was right. He dries it, and he gets a blow dryer, and he dries off the thing, and he puts more duct tape while he's trying to actually salvage some of the chametz kalim, and to put them back in there. The kids it's Erev Yom Tov, they're davening already mincha and tumen, no mikveh, no nothing. He throws on his suit and he storms out, in a mood to go to mincha, with leaving her to finish up, whatever. And she pulls it together, but it's like, he comes in there, his whole, nervous system is off. He thought he'd have time to prepare more, the Haggadah, he's got boys coming over. The kids, they make it through. First day Chol Hamoed, they go visit, she has an aunt in Bnei Brak, so they go visit the aunt. So they get to the Bnei Brak, they come in, first day Chol Hamoed, the auntie says, so how was your first Pesach? She launches in to a whole detailed description of this whole duct tape disaster with the thing, and he went under and he went away and he bashed his head, you see the band-aid and the thing, and he didn't use the hairdryer, and they're giggling away, they think it's the funniest story they've ever heard. Meanwhile, he's fuming, they walk out of there, he's fit to be tied. I'm never going to that aunt again, you humiliated me. He said, what are you talking about? He's just telling over a story. Just said, what are you talking? It was a nice story, it was a funny story. Yeah, Mike Spencer. Okay, the kids are fine. She thinks he's a nut, what can I tell you? But there you are. Anyway, 2 days later, they go, he has grandparents in Bayis Begun. They go to the grandparents, and they sit down, they start talking, and of course his grandmother says, how was your first Pesach? And before she knows, she launches right into the duct tape story again. And he's like, doesn't know what to do with it. But to her, this is life. It was funny, it was geschmack, it's part of our journey in life. They walk out, he's ready to divorce her. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Anyway, years later, they become grandparents. Their grandchildren come to visit. They say, Bobby, how was your first Pesach? But Bobby launches in, he storms out. Women enjoy process. They enjoy that process of life. To them, process is life. It is life. It's part of life. To men, it feels like wasting, agonizing. We're outcome oriented. We like to walk in with a set of tools, tell me what to fix, I fixed it, let me go back to the base of Medrash. Let me go back to work. We hate talking about those. It's weird. That's the way we are. We're just wired differently. So the shaila is, what was Nebuchadnezzar thinking? What was Hashem thinking? I mean, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Why did he make men and women so fundamentally different that we have this stress and tension between us? Why? And the answer is Pashut. Because again, it facilitates Tikkun Amidas. It facilitates breaking the ego. It's part of that philosophy. Hashem made men and women in a way you cannot get along naturally. You have to work at it. Which is our tachlis and our purpose. We're here in the world. It's all for that. So that actually is a vehicle towards it. So men have to work towards honoring the process of life, the way women process that. We have to honor that. It's not crazy. It's different. That's all. And we have to work on our midas and our patience. Rabbi Mashkiach, he said, there's only 2 times you can look at your watch. He said, one time is when you want to know whether you're fleshik or milchitz, you can look at your watch, you're allowed. And the other one is shkia. If shkia is coming, you're allowed to look. Otherwise, in the presence of your wife, never look at your watch. Whatever you do, just don't look at it. It's better not to wear one. Because the Yitzhak to go like this when she's talking. Right? It's just don't have one. Just get rid of it. It's better. But when you honor it, if you really honor it deeply, then it provides another vehicle that keeps us working on ourselves, and it becomes a tool for Avodas Hashem. Tremendous tool. And of course, it brings love. It brings tremendous love. The payback is love. You get tremendous love back when you do it, which is the payoff. It's so gewaldig, because that's all we want anyway, to be loved. We all want to be loved. So this is a vehicle for working on that. So that's the second reason we don't get along naturally. The third reason is personality. The fact is, this is lav dafka men and women, but it's also because, like the Rambam says, Kshem Shupat Sufem Enu Doim Kach Deosein Enu Doim. How did the Rambam know that? Just like your faces are different, your deis are different. Enu Doim, not even doim, not even similar. How did the Rambam know that? He went and interviewed everyone. How do you know? Like it's, when you think about it, and yet it's true. It's completely true. Just like faces are different, so deis. Everyone has different deis. Someone once confronted me, a certain Rav called me up about something he heard I said, which girl I didn't say, which was interesting. But he called me up and said, you know Russel, he called me Russel. Russel, you know, not everyone agrees with you. I said to him, that's so interesting. I didn't know you held I was a Balgaiva. I didn't know. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, why on earth would I think that everyone agrees with me? How's that possible? How's it possible everyone should agree with it? Doesn't make any sense. It's impossible. I was once speaking at a Sheva Brachas. I was saying this over to it was actually one of my nieces. My brother, he's a shtickle mathematician. You remember, brother, he's been a mathematician. He was doing his doctorate in pure logic before I took him to yeshiva. Yeah. A genius, a shtickle genius in math. So I was saying it over, so I quoted like this. It says, the Gaon brings from the Zohar Kodesh, why our day is different? Because there's Shivim Kaichas to the Nefesh. There are 70 different Kaichas to the Nefesh that define personality. 70 different aspects of, like, sensitivity, or anger, or frustration, or kindness. There are 70 different descriptors of personality. So I thought to myself that 70 different descriptors, let's say each one is different by Eichus and Kamus. Of course they're infinite, but let's say Eichus and Kamus. You could be very angry or not so angry. You could be frequently angry or infrequently angry. So each one of the descriptors varies by 2 variables, Eichus and Kamus, frequency and intensity. Of course it's more, but let's say just frequency and intensity. So I said, I imagine it's a very big number. It's a very big number. That means 2 to the power 70. So my brother's sitting next to me, and he pulls on my jacket in a moment, and he says, 2 to the power 37, that means 2 times 2 times 2, 37, not 70, 37 times, is more people that have lived, estimate, since Od Morishon. It's 2 to the power 37. It's about 130 billion. Whereas the estimate since Od Morishon is between 100 and 120 billion people, roughly. They have cheshbonis, how they do it. Now imagine what 2 to the power 70. It's a figure that's impossible to even fantasize. There's no language that could describe 2 to the power 70. So yeah, people's personalities are different. And the fact that I feel this way about anything has zero shaykhus that my wife should feel the same way, and vice versa. You understand? I feel the way I do as a result of a whole mizug of personality traits that result in me feeling the way I do. What's the shaykhus? For another person, you know how often we say to each other things like, I don't know why you're so tired. I'm not tired at all. It's crazy stuff. We can say things like, that makes you angry? Why does that make you angry? It shouldn't make you angry. Oh, let me press the shouldn't make me angry button. Okay, it doesn't make me angry. Just change my personality. What do you mean it shouldn't make you angry? It makes you angry. I don't know why. You shouldn't be so sensitive. I mean, it's crazy language when you think about it. No, it's totally nuts. We should lean into it and say, could you help me understand how you feel? Not, you shouldn't feel that way. What kind of business is that? We don't have a button to stop us feeling that way. Oh, now you said it, I don't feel that way. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's a gold medal for that psychologist who worked out how to stop you feeling that way. It's crazy. We feel differently. The mizug of our personalities are different, and that forces us, constantly forces us to work on ourselves. And the last one is culture. Culture is the impossible, demon that can wreck marriages, culture, because you can never debate culture. When I got married, I remember very distinctly, my wife was an American girl, I came from England, a very, very simple English background, and we went to buy furniture. We bought only second-hand for about 10 years. It was a war, it would have been a war. She wanted this shellac, black finished, modern art table, gorgeous thing, I remember seeing the first table, I put my hand underneath to feel if it was finished. Because in England, that's how you test the table. You put your hand, if it's not finished underneath, that's not a table. That's not a table. America, would you have to finish it underneath? As long as it looks nice. Anyway, you're going to throw it away and get another one next year. Culture is so I once spoke in LA. It was very embarrassing. I spoke in LA, I gave a drush, and I happened to mention something about culture, and I gave this example. It was a young couple. They moved to LA. No, I didn't say LA. They moved. They decided they lived in apartments and whatever. And finally, the father-in-law said, "Time to buy a house." They bought them a house, a nice house, started a house, and they fixed it up and whatever to make it look nice. They renovated everything. The war happened when they got to the issue of the dining room moldings. You see, she came from a real Hungarian family, and he came from Washington Heights, never. This was a disaster. A disaster. You see, Hungarians, if you don't have like 3 layers of moldings, and at least one of them should have grapes, then that is like an embarrassing room to sit in for Hungarian. That's like, no grapes? It's like, and for him, the very fact of putting what do you need a molding for? This wall, the ceiling hits the wall, it looks nice. What do you need a molding? Like, mica silver, what's a molding? A molding is moisterous. In Washington Heights, you won't find a molding. It's moisterous. It's not necessary. Go give them money to stock it. What are you putting moldings on? Anyway, her father was Hungarian. He was buying the house, and he wanted moldings, and she wanted moldings, and he didn't want moldings, and the whole building came until they sought counseling what to do about how should we proceed. I think the Maskana was one layer of moldings and no grapes, but they could have like fluted moldings, fluted, nice, Anyway, I said this story, everyone had a good laugh, and I finished. This couple come over to me afterwards. Can we speak to you over us? I figured they want an appointment, I don't know. So I go into a side room and they rip me to pieces. Turned out that was their story. Who told you to humiliate us publicly? That was their story. I had no idea. I just made it up. I never say over stuff of my clients. God forbid. It's always a mizug of stories. I would never say over a real story, and it was their story. They wanted to kill me. Their mamish wanted to kill me. They thought someone had tipped me off, told me. You can't argue culture. You can't debate culture. Culture just is. And people have different cultures today. We come from different places. The culture of your home, how you run a Shabbos table, how you run a Yom Tov, how you dress, how you act, the different Torah, the speed of the meal and the songs, and yes or not or whatever. Some like to sit for 3-4 hours in shmooze, and some like an hour and 20 minutes and let's go to sleep or go to lunch. Everyone, that's culture. You can't debate culture. And the chances of two people coming from the same place with the same culture is, in my opinion, 0. As hard as we try. And that forces us to work on ourselves, always. When you put all these 4 sibas together, they provide, you cannot live naturally. It makes you work. You have no choice. Because that's the tachlis of your marriage, was to work on yourself, on your midas and your ego. That was the whole point of it. So these are 4 examples that force us that we have to work on ourselves. So how do we do it? How do we do it? So I want to finish with this. I call it the 4 levels of intimacy. And intimacy here doesn't necessarily mean physical. There's beyond that, emotional. So what are the 4 levels of intimacy? And where's the goal? What's the tachlis? Where are we heading? So the first level most people reach is physical intimacy. They're drawn to each other, physical attraction, and they're drawn and they have a relationship with each other. They discover very often that their feelings are not there. But that's the lowest level, unfortunately. People who stay there tend to get divorced. That's the secular world. They don't move very far. After a while, it's boring. It's just unpleasant. If there's not a dveikistic connection, a loving connection, it's boring and it's unpleasant, and that drops apart and it falls apart. That's the Goisha 60%. More mature people seek counseling, advice, guidance, or common sense, or they read a book like Raising a Loving Family, in case you haven't seen it. Pitch there. I'll be signing copies later. Anyway, the kids the second level is emotional intimacy. I'll be finished literally in about 3-4 minutes. Is that okay? I'm sorry if I will finish. No, I really will. The second level is emotional intimacy. You go to a counselor or you read a book and what you're asked is, tell me something nice about the person you're living with. Tell me about her good qualities, about his milas. And so you attach yourself to the milas, to the strengths, the good qualities, and you appreciate and value the goodness in your spouse and their good qualities. What you can't do yet in emotional intimacy is face the chisonis. That you can't see. It's the eyes closed. Have to look away from it, swallow hard, don't know how to deal with it. Over the Maisa, I can connect to the goodness in my spouse, and for most people that will carry them through never in life. Most people stay right there for the rest of their lives. They never quite come to terms with what to do about all the dissonance, all the differences, because they don't have a picture of what it's for. So they tolerate and they squash their feelings down, but they at least appreciate the milas and the good things about each other, and that carries them through life. The third level, halavai, that we should be zeicha to the third level, is where I can be eyes open, see my spouse in their fullness, and just as I would wish that they could understand my chisonis, my flaws, I will honor them by accepting theirs. And we're going to work together, each of us, to overcome our flaws, our perceived flaws, the perceived flaws. I know I got them. And I imagine she knows she's got them, or he knows he's got them. And we're going to embrace it. We're going to accept it. This is why we're here together. And we're going to go on a journey together. And we're going to help each other with our flaws. And I accept you. I can look at you in your fullness. I can see you. Mailas and chisrainas. And I can love you. That's psychological intimacy. So up here, you got it together. You worked it out. And you can see your spouse for who they are. But the Rabbi says it's a much higher madriga. Way, way higher. I call that spiritual intimacy. Spiritual intimacy is the tachlis abriya. It's what we started with, it's why we're here, it's our purpose in life. And this is how I define it. It's not that I just love you because of the physical pleasure I have with you. It's not that I just love you because you have big milas. You're a very good person. It's not that I love you despite your chisrainas, but I love you because of them. Because your chesainas were custom made for me, to help me grow, to help me work on myself. Abayim yaim kodim yisiras avlad, the Eibishter put us together, because what I perceive as your chesainas are making me a better man, or a better woman. I'm going to work on myself, we're going to work together. I'm going to be a better person because of them, not despite them, but because of them. That's spiritual intimacy. That's the tachlis. That's the focus. That's what we're after. That's what marriage is for. We embrace everything fully and completely and honestly. And I take it, drink it in to work on myself, to become a better person, to become egoless and get rid of my ego and be focused on caring and loving to my spouse. This is the tachlis. This is marriage. This is why the Eibishter put us in this world. And this is the vehicle. Zal Eibishter helfen. If we still have this focus and work on it through our lifetime, then we have Dov Kabbai, then we achieve the Tachlis, the Eibishter put us in this world. Thank you very much.